Welcome back to Newsday. Now, Britain's King Charles is set to host Nigerian President Bola Tinubu at Windsor Castle today in the first state visit by a Nigerian leader in 37 years. Now, the goal is to strengthen bilateral ties between both countries of the Commonwealth. And we have our Arise correspondents all strategically positioned to cover every single aspect of this momentous state visit by the leader. So, Arise correspondent Adefemi is okay, yes. Arise correspondent Adefemi Akinsanya is at Windsor, and she joins us now, as well as Adesuwa Omorowan, the State House correspondent, who's at London's Castle Hill. So we have both of them there in London. And, Adefemi, I guess I'll start with you. I guess just give us a sense of what to expect in the coming minutes. I was looking at the schedule and it looks like the formal welcome should be happening sort of any moment now. So just, bring us up to speed on what we're looking at in those live pictures.
Hiya, Annie. Hello, Nee. Well, it's exactly that. that, isn't it? So what you're looking at is really the early stages of this parade, and it just is one of the key indicators that, you know, the show is definitely on the way, and we are expecting to see the guests of honor very soon. When we're looking at their day so far, we do know that the President and the First Lady, they did retire at their hotels last night at the Fairmont, and it was this morning that it was expected that the Prince and Princess of Wales were to greet them at their hotels, and then all four of them would make their way down into these areas here. So what we're expecting, the pictures that you're looking at now, this is a location called Datchet Road essentially, and just if we were to zoom out a little bit, you'd be able to see the stage, which is where President Tinubu and King Charles will eventually stand. So we're actually in pole position just at the moment here. We're just waiting for it all to really kick off. But essentially what we're waiting for is the arrival of the carriage. They will drive all the way up the street, exactly past that podium you're looking at, and then upwards the street towards where Adesua is. Thereafter, they'll turn around and then come back down. So what we are looking forward to now is the coming of the first sighting of the vehicles that they're traveling in, and that should be happening any moment now. And what's quite interesting is that there are a few of us located strategically in different areas. So where we're stood at this stand, it's directly opposite to this stage. And then just to the far corner, you can see that there are some photographers stationed over that side of the stage here. So everyone is essentially going to get their coveted shot, their coveted angle. But it is just such a historic moment. As you rightfully said, Annie, this is the first time that a Nigerian leader will be invited to the United Kingdom for a state visit. This is the first time in 37 years. And over the course of those nearly 4 decades, a lot has changed in Nigeria. Nigeria's population has grown. Nigeria's economy has grown. Nigeria's British diaspora has grown. And speaking of the diaspora, just littered up and down these streets, you can see many people who are members of the British diaspora, whether or not they live in Windsor or in neighbouring London or anywhere in the United Kingdom. There is a very strong presence here. And there's also, right where Adesua is, a huge presence of people who have travelled here from Nigeria. And it is quite refreshing to see the amount of support the president does have in the diaspora, and this is clearly going to be something that is key for him as he seeks re-election. But really, as it stands now, this visit really isn't about politics, as it were. It's not about the election that is coming up. We do know that Tinubu is 3 years into his term, and this being 3 years, it has given him enough time to really market Nigeria, and I do think we're seeing the dividends of that show with this state visit. You know, state visits as they occur will come from the head of government. It would be Sir Keir Starmer who would let King Charles know that he wants the Nigerian president to come, and that's how these state visits come about. And I think that when we look at the scorecard of Tinubu's presidency, his administration over the past 3 years, it's easy to understand why. Is our economy perfect? No, but we do have pockets of development. We have seen the Naira strengthen in relative terms. We've seen our foreign exchange reserves grow over time. We've seen the slowing down of inflation. We do have that very ambitious target of single-digit inflation, and while we're not there yet, all of these are key indicators as to why the United Kingdom is really trying to woo Nigeria. In addition to our president and of course his cabinet being here, we have a huge showing of Nigeria's private sector, institutional leaders who have institutions. Oh, can you hear that? The music has just started. So that is another indicator that something is shaking. This is wonderful. So you can hear, I'm going to stop talking so we can take a listen. So yes, we've just heard that wonderful procession there from the parade, which is what we were expecting to really be one of the first indications of the ceremonial aspect of this visit. So it is quite beautiful to listen to see the talent on display, the tradition also. And in terms of the presence here, we can see that the mayor of Windsor and Maidenhead is also on ground. Her name is Mandy Bra, and she is wearing the ceremonial red robe, so you should be able to see her in the coming moments. She's in position, of course, ready to welcome both the President and King Charles III. So we are at this moment still anticipating the arrival of our special guests of honor, but as ever, I'll hand over to my colleagues and I'll be sure to shout once it's time to go.
Many thanks for that. But we also have to mention that, of course, Judita Da Silva is also here with us, as she's going to be reflecting on that. But we go straight to State House correspondent Adesua Omorwan, who's also standing by at London's Castle Hill, from where she joins us now. It's good to have you with us, Adesua. So what can you tell us about the nature of the bilateral ties that will be discussed today?
Thank you very much, Nii and Anyeze. Great to be here. Let me just start by saying the weather has been great, first and foremost, for such a grand day as today. It's as much as the symbolism, just as it is diplomacy, what we're seeing today. If you look beyond the ceremonial aspect, which in itself is grand, as Adefemi has, expatiated for our viewers, it's also about placing Nigeria on the global stage, economically and politically. Now, although some deals have been signed on the sidelines of this event, it is important for President Bola Tinubu to also reiterate the message he often sells to the world wherever he finds himself since the commencement of his administration in 2023, that Nigeria is open for business. So this state visit is strategic for him, and I do know that the first speeches that will be made during this visit will be given later today at the state banquet by President Bola Tinubu and King Charles III. So, but when it comes to the diplomacy itself, Nii and Anyeze, when it comes to diplomacy and putting pen to paper, much of those will be happening tomorrow. The politics and of course the economics of it will happen much later during this visit. A visit with the Prime Minister, a visit with the business community. It is important for President Bola Tinubu to sell Nigeria to the world. Like I said, even though those deals have been signed by the sidelines, like Adefemi I know has reiterated in the course of the bulletin so far this morning, President Bola Tinubu needs to send the signal that Nigeria is truly open for business. Now, whether that translates to what Nigerians want to see back at home for economic development, prosperity, energy stability, security, that's another kettle of fish. And it's very important for investors, investors, as you and I know, only put their money where you have stability. So that's one thing President Bola Tinubu has been trying to sell and his administration. I bet he's bringing that message today as well when he makes a speech later today. Investors also want to make sure that the highest level of governments are involved when these deals are signed and when the stability happens. And that's what you will see when you have such handshakes and courtesy between the first democratically elected president of Nigeria in 37 years, exchanging pleasantries and handshakes with King Charles III, the monarch here, and of course again tomorrow when he will be meeting with the head of government, which is the Prime Minister of this country, Nii.
Thank you, Adesua. I'll come to you now, Judita, because there's also something to be said about just the rarity of these kinds of meetings. I think the UK only had 3 last year. The bigger one that we covered was the one with President Trump in September. So just give us a sense of what this particular state visit, how it may differ, whether visually or culturally, given that it's the Nigerian president that's coming this time around. What can we kind of expect to see in that regard?
I think both Adefemi and Adesowa have kind of threaded the through line of the importance of what's being put together behind the scenes and in front. As you said, last year, there were 3 state visits. That was President Trump from America, President Emmanuel Macron from France, and Frank-Walter Steinmeier from Germany. With these state visits, particularly for when it comes to Commonwealth nations, it's orchestrated at the first instance by the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, who understand diplomatically and strategically between them and the Prime Minister Keir Starmer's office which countries need to be engaged with on a higher level. And the golden tickets, the silver bullets, the most valuable thing they have when it comes to the discourse of diplomacy is the royal family, because it is so legacied, it's so enamored, it strikes people with so much awe and fascination. We saw the ability it had to ease tensions between Donald Trump in the wake of his tariffs, just to give him the letter from King Charles III inviting him to a state visit. When it comes to Nigeria, with a country that has billions of dollars in trade, they understand that this relationship has to be fostered. So they're almost throwing everything at it to show that where other people might have a preconception that African nations are developing or primitive, if the very highest courts in the land, which is both the Prime Minister's office and the royal family, are rolling out the red carpet for the Nigerian leader, that is the respect and the esteem they hold both him and his country in. And looking at from the welcome at the Fairmont Hotel, the Fairmont Hotel group has been so synonymous with the royal family for decades. Every decade of the reign of Queen Elizabeth, the late Queen Elizabeth, she stayed at the Fairmont Hotels. That is where they put up the president and the first lady. So every little detail has been gone over to show the best of what we have is being rolled out at your service to show the recognition and respect we have for both Nigeria, its people, and its leader.
Juditha, now, what's the royal practices and tradition when it comes to state visits like this one?
So, for instance, where at the royal dais, that's an elevated platform where they call the throne area. Normally, when we see there's the official birthday of the monarch according to birth, and then there's the natural birthday of the monarch according to birth, and then the official birthday, which happens every June in the summer when they do trooping the colour. On the royal dais, where you have the throne, that is where King Charles III would be, and he watches the parade. He takes the royal salute. They hear the anthems, and for state visits, you welcome the presidency. That is the significance of having that same dais that the Britons hold in such high esteem every year rolled out for the president. You have the King's Royal Troop Horse Artillery that you're looking at now, who will also be there when the band of the parade, the band of the regiment, as well as the corps of drums, will perform the national anthem of Nigeria. This is as high as it gets, as important as it gets, and it takes so much planning and so much practice to put it together. This, on every level, through the optics and the practice, shows the level of consideration being shown by all the institutions of Britain for the arrival and the hosting of Nigeria and its presidency.
Fascinating. Thank you, Juditha. Adefemi, I'll come to you now. So, you mentioned something about how, our scorecard as a nation is somewhat improving, and that might be one of the reasons why this state visit even happened in the first place. But I'm curious to know what the coverage of this state visit is on the British side or over in Europe. I mean, we've been covering it extensively here, but how is the UK kind of seeing this meeting? I can come to you now. So, you know, when we were talking about this story earlier this morning on the morning show, and there was a lot of commentary around the critical mass, right, of senators and governors and different leaders from across Nigeria that are there in London as well. You mentioned some sideline deals as well that might have been signed sort of on the side, but can you just give us a sense of their role in all of this? You know, it's natural to kind of go with a delegation, but what's the role of all of these other leaders in making sure that they were present at this trip, and was it necessary? Can you hear me?
Was that for me?
Yes. Yes, sorry, Adesua. I was basically asking that this morning on the morning show, we were discussing the critical mass of governors and different senators that are also present in London. And I wanted to get a sense of, you know, what you think their role is in all of this, given the fact that it's a state visit between the president and the king and the queen of England. So what's the role of all of these extra leaders?
Okay, Annie, forgive me. It's a bit noisy around. We have even the airspace is busy at the moment with some activities, and of course the band right behind me, as Adefemi pointed out earlier. Yes, so the critical mass, as you put it, we do have a long list of delegation of government officials on this trip accompanying President Bola Tinubu. At the last count, I think I saw about 5 governors, including the recently defected governor of Zamfara State, Governor Dauda Lawal, who has just defected from the PDP to the APC, the president's governing party. We have the president of the Nigerian Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, and the governor of Lagos State, Katsina, Akwa Ibom, and Enugu. For state visits, yes, you might say it's between the government official, that's the monarch, extending this honor to Nigeria and to President Bola Tinubu and his wife. But what we see with state visit, unusually, is that it is usually accompanied by political and economic conversations and discussions. It's like an open ticket. So it is a state visit, it is an honor being extended to Nigeria, and you want to milk it. So we do have members of the National Assembly that are here, we have governors, and we have members of the federal cabinet. At the last count, there were also, I think I saw nothing less than 9 ministers of the federal cabinet here for different sectors, including trade and investment, finance. We have the Minister of Tech, Science and Innovation, and education as well. Now, if you look at the sectors, they're very strategic. These are sectors where the Nigerian economy and the Tinubu administration has been putting a lot of focus. There are also sectors where you have this bilateral agreement with the United Kingdom. So should they be on the trip? Should they be this much in number? I guess it's out there for the jury to decide. But for the administration, they are very strategic with this visit. From what they have put out so far, from what they've told us, that these are necessary steps that need to be taken to drive the much-needed investment back at home. So it's a lot about ceremony and the ceremonial pomp and pageantry we're going to see. But for them, it's also an opportunity to score the economic, political, and social cards as well, Annie. So the number might be debatable, that's left to the jury, but for the administration, they feel it's necessary and they should be here.
Now, Judita, if I may ask, what has changed between the late Queen Elizabeth's hosting of states visits, especially with Commonwealth states like this one, and of course comparing it with the King Charles at the moment? And I remember in those days, even when the Queen wasn't able to do this, the then Prince Charles has come into that fold to also represent the Queen. So what are your thoughts? Has anything changed, or has he raised the bar a little?
I think everyone knows, if you've covered the royal family, if you read about the royal family, if you had the inside scoop on the firm, that's one of the most precious things to the late Queen Elizabeth. Actually, two of the most precious things were, if it wasn't about her love of horses, it was her love of the Commonwealth. It was a thing she was proudest of. It was a thing she was most precious about. It's a thing she presided over and worked overtime to preserve. So when the discussions around the transition from Queen Elizabeth to King Charles III even began, it was understood and never disputed that the preservation and protection of the Commonwealth is important. That is a legacy that must carry on. We've even seen it with when Harry was still within the fold. Both William and Harry would go on trips to the countries of the Commonwealth, and they would take an extra care when it came to the mechanics of diplomacy and fostering those relationships. And when you look to Africa, it's kind of seen that the jewel of Africa is Nigeria. It is the most complicated but the most fascinating country, and it's a relationship that has the potential to yield the level of dividends economically, financially, politically, strategically, and now looking at the conversations on energy, which obviously, like Adesu and Adefemi can go into more. This is such an important day because it continues to foster a legacy that's at a point of true existential crisis for the royal family, where you have conversations around Commonwealth nations no longer wanting a monarch as the head of state. When you think of Anthony Albanese in Australia, trying to find out what is the true relevance of the royal family to this day. They have to work overtime to show the diplomatic value that they hold not only to Britain, but on the world stage. And looking at a partnership with the continent of Africa and a country that holds such resonance within Africa like Nigeria, the stakes are equally as high for King Charles and Queen Camilla as they are for our President and First Lady.
All right. We've been speaking with Adefemi Akisoya, of course, Adesua Omorwa and Judita Da Silva, all covering the Nigerian leader's visit to the UK.